Yep, I think we're all good. We'll go on to the stream, and then that is in Discord, and then we are in good shape, I believe. Sweet. Yeah. So, hi Mike. Hi everyone else. We got a TikTok. Sick. Welcome to. We have round 2 of the Arena Tribe Meetup Agent Jam thing, and we have a very special guest for us this week, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Oh, hey Tara, do you have a? You got the mic? You got the audio? You good? Oh crap! I still can't hear. Okay. Anyway, our special guest for this evening. Do you want me to use your real name? Do you have a handle? Do you have a preference on what I call you, Mister?
I really don't care.
Okay, cool. Well, we have our friend Kieran here from Random Labs. Random Labs makes Slate, and Slate is pretty cool. The thing that we have for Slate is Slate did try building something. I was hoping it would get farther. I think it got tripped up by the DeepGram SDK, but I did have it chug all the way through until it was able to do this, which was hopefully. Oh, I think I probably need to run it, don't I? Let's do.
I think it might be.
Might be what? Oh yeah, there we go. There he is. Oh no,
Yeah.
he has a copy. Yeah. Slate's got a copy running, I think. And then let's see if we can invite them up. And unfortunately, I don't think the transcription works. Let's see if Slate's advice is actually going to kick it off. But it is running and live, and so Slate has that terminal in the background, which that's definitely.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, yeah, I wanted to. That's definitely a thing that I wanted to ask you about. Right, a lot. Live AI demos are super fun. The most reliable of all software. Let me just. I want to double check and make. Okay, I am live. Okay, cool. Yeah. So Slate, what it has going on right now is a terminal running in the background, which I did not necessarily arrange that. And I was going to ask you, like, oh, if it's got a process running in the background, like, how are you getting that to be non-blocking? Because I know that happens a lot, at least with the kinds of agents that I use all the time.
Oh, yeah. So we built out our own process management integrations for like shell integrations. Like, basically built a bunch of shell integrations from scratch, and then that was kind of it. I think the hardest part was figuring out. Was figuring out the blocking part and also getting like the right data piped back in, because when you're doing shell interaction, you actually take on the user's environment, and that can fuck things up really easily.
Absolutely. I run into that all the time where it's like, does my agent have the same environment as I do? I've migrated over to Mise en Place specifically because I kept running into that, and because it's a good application. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the big things that we did. Funnily enough, we were building actually a like full like Electron app product for a while, and we realized that like I built that system 7 months ago, before people had like background process, like before Claude Code had background processes. I built that integration like months ago. So I think like that was definitely a really cool thing to have. There's some. Oh, that's cool. There's some more intricate stuff around getting an agent to understand what it's seeing. You have to do a lot of output cleaning. So there's a lot of like parsing, cleaning, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty soon we're going to actually have the ability to interact with each of the processes that it's running. So
Ooh,
you'll be able to like,
nice.
yeah, exactly. So you'll be able to interact and share the same environment that it's working
Oh
on.
hell yeah, yeah, yeah. That'll be sick. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess I jumped into the nerd stuff like immediately, but let's back up a little bit. Who are you? What is Random Labs, and what is the idea behind Slate? Why do I want Slate instead of like a Claude Code or whatever?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, let's see. I am, well, until a while ago, I was pretty much just like a no-name dude hacking on coding
One of the
models.
anime profile picture anons. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. This was actually, I started like hacking on code gen models in 2022. Um, and then was just like grinding, built one of the first DevOps agents, and then got like got myself to San Francisco and ended up launching an open source agent, which was essentially Claude Code, but like a year before Claude Code existed.
Hell
We
yeah.
were one of the open source dev projects. If you've heard of Devon, that was us. Or
I
Devon with
remember
no,
fondly
right?
Devon.
That was yeah. Yikes was a pretty big part of that Discord. And then we realized, so we had a bunch of things that we were trying to build. We were trying to build different interfaces. We had something kind of like Devon's UI slash conductor slash whatever, locally, and all of that was open source. The big problem was that there was a bunch of compatibility things. So, and there was way too much support overload, and so we actually had to like kind of kill the project. Um, and that was kind of painful because we had like thousands of people actually using the agent originally. We were one of the first agents that you could publicly use. And it was actually pretty good. Models weren't there at the time, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we went back and we're building out this like more advanced Electron app, IDE integration, all that good stuff. And then all the vibe coding app builders took off and whatever. And we still had this conviction that we could build an agent that could actually do the end-to-end development work. And that's kind of been the main driving force behind Slate and like how we got here is we've always wanted to build stuff for highly technical people to do actual engineering work and not like just vibe coding. I think vibe coding is great, but like personally, the thing that's really inspiring to me that like is really, really fascinating is um, how do you get a machine to understand the state of like a very technical system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you get it to internalize a world model of, you know, um, the entire development process and deployment pipeline all the way from initial spec work to the the ECS cluster that it's running in AWS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we spent a bunch of time like trying to figure out different things that were there. Admittedly, didn't capitalize on the fact that we had a good agent for a long time. So that's what we're trying to do now because it's like, all right, well, people like agents. We know we can build the like one of the best ones. All right, well, let's just do that because that seems to be what people want. And we were trying to figure out like what do we want to how do we want to position this? How do we want to define this? Where should this sit in somebody's toolkit? And the conclusion we came to was that we should just do the thing that we always wanted to do, which was make an agent that is like, you know, good at like actually hard things and like can actually help you solve real problems. Uh, and so that's where Slate came from. That was the intention. That is still the intention. So there's a lot of stuff that I actually have done experiments on. Yikes, you might have noticed that the like context management feels pretty smooth.
Yeah, no, I was very impressed. The yeah, context and like the trajectory, like memory kind of stuff seemed really good. I'm super interested in what you guys are doing there.
So there's still a few issues, but I've run like dozens and dozens and dozens of experiments on different ways of doing memory. So you can do compression, you can do like subsection compression, so you can compress smaller pieces of the trajectory, and then you can do embedding search over them. You can do a lot of different things like that that will break up, parse, filter, etc. All of the different uh, like pieces of your context. Um, and so with a lot of that, we kind of figured out how to lay out the trajectory in such a way that the model understands it well, basically.
Hmm.
And then it's more about getting, building intuitive tools. So actually, models, just like people, require tools that are intuitive to them. And so you just have to kind of understand like what is the information that this model is seeing, and how is it internalizing it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very like hand wavy way of saying do context engineering.
Right.
Um,
End of the day, it comes back to that. Right.
Genuinely be scientific about doing context engineering. And then from there, you have a bunch of other problems that like we're going to be working on, I guess,
Ooh, this
in
is
the
a
near
nice
future.
trajectory.
I've done experiments on. Even a year ago, I was running experiments on like what is the longest length for which a model can simulate a state machine or a set of automata with like
Hmm.
changes. So how many steps along a tape can it simulate a set of automata for? And that scales with the number of automata that you're kind of representing, and the length of the tape, the number of time steps that you're taking.
Hmm.
Um, a bunch of other interesting things like that that are like reasoning experiments that you can do to understand the limitations of models holding and kind of tracking types over time. So that was a lot of that work went into making it be able to use stuff like multiple terminals. In the future, it'll be able to manage really well. It'll be able to manage subagents like very well because we understand how to make it uh, track and kind of like things in the environment pretty well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think that's the ability to track ephemeral state changes, especially
yeah,
complicated ones, is something they tend to be really, really bad at. But I actually, yeah, Baco from the audience, you saw him posting in chat. He also has an engine of sorts that's like a draining it's driving some sequential set of state machines, and the I've seen it come up actually in a couple other places too. I know actually one of the ways that I kind of like to track state, like while or have a model track state, is just like have it use like a SQL database basically, and then kind of update the table relation with what the thing is doing, like as it is building kind of the thing, so it can sort of map out and show, more importantly, show me like what the state changes are supposed to involve.
yeah, no, stuff like that is really interesting. I think that the end state for memory is probably something like that. I think actually for a end user, the best thing you can do is just tell it to work with markdown files. Um, to be completely honest, just have like as an end user, have it interact with markdown files that
Mm-hmm.
you like have a specific, I don't know, format, name, whatever, for based off of your specific task, and that'll work really well. Once we generalize our once we generalize longer trajectory reasoning and memory, then things will get really interesting. But that's not out yet. That's going to come soon. And then we have some really cool stuff coming up
Sweet.
for parallel agent execution. So that's going to be fun.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, that's the TLDR behind Slate. Slate, and then the obviously the one-liner is that Slate is the agent designed for long, hard, and like edge case tasks,
Mm.
um, which I think is important to think about because it is explicitly not designed to be a thing that will do what like cursor autocomplete does, or like a fancy version of Command K. Like it's explicitly not supposed to be that, and you shouldn't use it like that. It's probably one of the few coding agents that you're supposed to treat with a high level of autonomy, and that lends itself to different tasks. So our one of our current goals, which I would love any feedback on, is making it really good for discovery tasks. Actually, when you have high ambiguity in something you're doing, it's like, how can we make this thing um, more capable at discovering um, the relationships between components in the code base
Mm-hmm.
and like APIs and services and et cetera, et cetera. How do we help you figure that out and internalize that? Because another big problem that you'll run into with coding agents is we built this super autonomous thing. There's a couple issues though. What happens when it runs into a problem? What happens when the user doesn't actually want the thing that it thinks the user wants, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Your highest priority is actually on aligning it with the user and making sure the user understands what it wants, rather than well, yeah, what it's trying to do, so that the user can then um, correct it with the proper information,
Yeah, for sure.
and then building the interaction loop around that and making it feel natural and smooth is like important.
Yeah, no, I think all of that. I think actually, yeah, we this sounds like a good topic to kind of dig into. Normally, I would want to do like a little detour over for like general news, interesting stuff. But if we have an interesting thing to talk about, no reason we can't just like save that till the end. So yeah, I would while you have the floor, Kieran, is there anything that you want to like plug or remark about, or like thing for you to say while the microphone is yours? And otherwise, I will be happy to like let people on, and we can do a little jam about state stuff.
Yeah, definitely go use Slate, go try it. We're
Absolutely.
actually trying to make it better at like difficult long tasks that have like weird edge cases that require a bunch of other stuff. So any feedback on like edge case failures that most agents fail at or Slate specifically fails at would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I think categorically we fit in a different spot than something like Claude Code or Cursor,
Really interesting.
which well, yeah, I mean, like if I look at like the way that people have been responding to it online and using it, it's like it the interface of the CLI is the same, but we're going to be building out so much additional stuff designed to support this specific type of workflow.
I
Um,
I will say that
and
the type of workflow does kind of have a different feel to it. Like this kind of like this approach, which is very like subtle, right? Where it's like it's working. I'm noticing it working in its trajectory. I'm checking on my code base, and then I'm like, hey, like this doesn't import anything from DeepGram. Are you sure you're using the right thing? It's like, no, I got this, but actually that's a good point. Let me go investigate that. And like that little bit
yeah,
at the end where it feels like I can be part of this sort of like process, and we're kind of locked in together is super dope. Is not a feeling that I get with Claude, possibly intentionally, or really any of the other agents, because for those agents, how I like to run them usually is to like
yeah,
prep the context, like do a rollout, don't interrupt them, then go see what they did, stop, and then go like prep the next rollout kind of thing. Um, but yeah, the I think it's a very interesting. Uh, like the part that the part that I like about this here, I guess here's your user feedback thus far, is like is
mhm,
the feeling that I got where it was like we are co-working actually. Like I'm in the this is this guy. He's got his own terminal. He's running his own tests. I've got mine. I can like bounce around and double check what he's doing, and then like drop him feedback immediately, and then that gets integrated like I'm like I have a coworker basically, which is not a feeling that I
Yeah.
get from like Claude or whatever. Although maybe that's just a workflow thing. I don't know.
No, it's actually not. There's a couple specific, like the way that we built the control flow is such that you can interrupt it immediately and it will immediately respond to whatever you're talking about. And that was entirely intentional. I think getting a tight feedback loop where it feels like you are, it should feel kind of like you're piloting something.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, and yeah, the ideally like Copilot kind of thing. Well, yeah, I guess I saw a bunch of stuff in the chat, and yeah, Octavia, you're welcome to jump up too if you want. I tried to invite you. I'm not sure what the thingy is doing, but yeah, I guess rather than the prompt that I came up with in isolation, I think the more interesting prompt appears during the discussion as it usually is. So yeah, Mike and Baco definitely I know have a lot of like thoughts and experience about like state management and then kind of the other sort of things that we were touching on there. So yeah, like I would say, floor open. What do you got? What's your burning question?
Just real quick, guys.
Yeah.
I just dropped some links. Basically, every memory that you could imagine or piece of a context you could imagine to be a Nix archive, a NAR file that you can then compose into your context, and it'll be mounted in a known position for your agent to use, and then you can actually version your agent, all the packages you need, every single library. It can be immutably stored and then referenced. So you have a complete reproducible environment to run whatever agent you want. It'll support every single agent that you can imagine. Currently, I'm an CLI, but it can be used for any CLI-based system.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, I remember you were kind of touching on that last week, where it's like just like why track the memory of an agent when you can just grab the entire system state, which I thought was really, really interesting. But then it's a matter of like, okay, what are we parsing down? But my thought there being, okay, we have this giant state block. We can replicate the machine. So from there, for each like state n, for state n plus one, we need to be able to like throw that in a loop of like exploration, exploitation at every n plus one states until you get to the end state of the machine with the software on it type beat. Is like,
yeah, and that's your Bitcoin hash that you just mined for the new system.
Nice. Yeah, Baco, you mentioned that you've got some thoughts on Synapses. What do you got for Nix states and continued?
I just like his idea for the mapping concepts and ideas into like Nix objects, and then you can vectorize them and then store them on chain. So like the chain blockchain that I'm building is federated storage. So basically, it stores instead of like weights that determine like the values of different things in the network or whatever that normal blockchains use. It stores like model weights that can like hold, or like the model embeddings that can like hold concepts and stuff. As well as like pointers to storage for larger like knowledge stores. Anyway, I like the idea for the Nix stuff for that because I think that would be a cool way to manage it. You wind up using Nix like a package manager.
Yeah. Well, right.
But for memories, yeah.
Well, look, the difference between the blockchain in this context, the blockchain is orthogonal to Nix because you can just think that every package. Every of these archives on Nix could be in the blockchain or off the blockchain or in multiple blockchains.
Yeah,
so,
but using it to be able to reconstruct state is what I meant.
Yeah.
Back to the sort of topic at hand. I had a couple questions here. Are you training models specifically to handle like modeling state? I've never thought to use a model to try to be a state manager. That sounds like a funny thing.
Yeah, I think I got a paper for you.
So I am curious how you did that. And then, what's the other one that I had? Oh yeah, you answered that one, which is no.
Can I answer that, Paco, about state management?
Yeah, sure.
What you got?
Look at MiniZinc and the work that I've been doing. I've integrated it into Rust. I have the agent able to use it and generate problems and solutions. And with MiniZinc, you can perform perfect state management, perfect state checking, You can
Oh
prove
yeah.
that your state system is valid in every aspect. It's a complete constraint solver system. You can use it to do ACLs like Amazon Web Services ACLs. You can prove that every action is valid.
Cool.
Yeah. There was
So
actually
you have a specific model trained for it then.
I don't have we construct the model using a solver. So it's the mini zinc solver that constructs the model on the fly based on the constraints that you need.
Okay.
So we're not actually using a training model, you're actually building the model. It's old school AI.
yeah.
That's the way.
Nice. Yeah, Kieran, are you guys doing anything in house in terms of like trying to like take some of these problems related to state and just learn the answer to them, kind of thing? It's usually what I go with.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of thoughts here. Short answer, no, right now. I attempted or done things like this in the past. I think generally you end up with really fragile schemes. And so I think the solution here is actually like something a lot more general and unopinionated that happens to construct the
I'm really
right.
curious how you're getting the model to construct these state, like to operate as a state machine, because like I went the opposite direction. So my system, I completely offloaded state management into its own like computer run system, so that it state is completely removed from the cognitive overhead of the model. Because I found that trying to make it manage state was like way more of a pain in the ass than it was worth.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the state machine experiment that I was talking about was a direct like thing where I was like, you need to propagate this state forward and steps, like do it. And that was more of a test to understand how well it could propagate.
Oh, you're just probing it. Okay.
State changes with rules. However, applied to something like an agent, that what that means is you can actually figure out kind of like the number of threads of things that it can simultaneously model.
Yeah, so you're modeling out like how large of a context you can give it to perform an operation reliably, right?
Right. Or it gives you a good intuition, at least around like what the model breaking point is, like what the limitation actually is, versus
it certainly isn't a fucking million contexts.
Well, yeah, but like a million context actually doesn't really mean anything right now because it can't effectively use more than I think fraud is getting up there, but like really the longest effective context that I've seen has been on the order of like 70 to like maybe 120k tokens, but after 70 it starts to drop off a lot. Even after like 50, I think there's like 3 to 4 main points. It's like 30k, 50k, 70k, 120k, and then maybe somewhere around like 180 is when you start to go to zero on the value of any new context added. And then after that you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, I agree. So like my whole thesis is that narrowing context and deploying multiple agents to perform complex tasks is like a more optimal way to solve bigger problems. So making a system that can take a large problem, break it up into constituent pieces, provide the required context for each individual agent to like work on that like one small task, and narrowly scoping it so it doesn't have any other information in its context, I get way better results with it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would really disagree with you on that. I think Anthropic believes the same thing. Personally, I think I'm less sold on it, but still, like, what you're essentially saying is like isolate contexts. And yeah, isolated context makes a lot of sense because it gives the model the ability to attend much more strongly to much more limited amounts of data.
Yeah,
and when you do that, the model can make smarter decisions, right?
I think. Oh yeah, go for it.
I'm very novel to agent stuff, but
it's a fun rabbit hole to fall down, but there's a lot of it.
Oh yeah, I love it. Hi.
Hi.
I just started falling down, and anyway, the point is, my question is like, Has anyone used like Mem0 or something for memory
Yep.
management?
That's excellent segue. Mem0. So yeah, we return to my favorite topic when discussing model ways to make models better, and that is graphs. I found an interesting repo. It was on my list of like little news things that I found today, which is interesting. So the paper is called RPG Repository Planning Graph for Unified and Scalable Codebase Generation. So one of the things that Mem0 does is takes the knowledge graph approach, which I think the general principle behind that is strong, i.e., um, I think a good way to organize information that would make sense to a model. And I'm interested actually if you I know we experimented with it for a while on Devon, Karen, but like, are you doing any what are you doing with graphs and what's working for that? And then have you guys, for those whom we were trying to do state management, have we tried doing like graph based approaches? Although I will, with regard to Mem0, let's do that first. Does anybody use Mem0 or use a knowledge graph like day to day? And yeah, let's grab that. Let me grab that for you.
I looked into graphs a while back. Into deep graph knowledge embeddings.
Oh, it wasn't.
Do really, really deep markdown file index pages work?
Okay.
It's the best routing that I'm getting performance out of right now. Everything else seems to somewhat fall apart.
There we go. So, frick! I thought I was sharing the whole time. I've been bouncing around till across all these repos we've been talking about. Rip. But
So I think we had some success in SRI for like social norm detection, like when we were using like knowledge graphs combined. That's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, like it's arbitrary way to organize information. But I know that kind of one of the cells for Mem0 is they're like, hey, we have long-term memory figured out, which I think the principle that you're talking about, Kieran, applies in that the problem is the context is like not clogged and we need to know like what it should be looking at right now, and one of the ways to kind of model that is with the graph model of like, okay, this relates to this is related to that, maybe here's some like ASTs or other code graphs you can pull out of the code base, and then a way to organize that can be like a top level knowledge graph, which I believe is kind of the approach that Mem0 uses.
I've messed with Mem0. I can tell you for a fact they do not have long-term memory solved. That is not a solved problem by, I think, almost anybody. And it's for a variety of reasons, but specifically with
Oh, she
Sorry.
thank you. Yeah.
Everybody wants to say that they solved it, but they haven't. I mean, I guess it depends, like, what does that mean long term? Like,
Exactly.
define the term.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So the most valuable thing for building functional agents, right? So this is the only thing that I really care about. I don't personally, I don't really care about building a personality-based agent. I don't really need to have something that can like pull in relevant information about a person. That they interact with, i.e. the user, right? Like that's not as valuable for us. And so graph memory works really well when you have a person or a personality or something like that. What's I think interesting about the graph-based approach though is that I've done a lot of custom work on this, like a lot of custom work, probably more than actually like the Mem0 team. Maybe, and something comparable at least. Especially in getting it to work for tasks. And consistently, the problem here is not generation. Graph generation is really, really easy. The problem is actually pruning, is building a good pruning algorithm, I guess, that captures the relevant information, coalesces identical or near similar entities, and like compresses nodes and things like that and then allows you to traverse it in a hierarchical way. Um, that's really freaking hard because models, because essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to solve a almost intractable problem, because you're dealing with the problem of I need to update something, but I don't know what I have and I don't know what I need to update. So I have to search for it first and I have to believe that I'm just going to get all of the right results. But if the input content was different than this current search content, then you're not going to get all of the results. And that what that means is that your graph is going to be messy. It's not going to be a perfectly clean graph where every entity is unique. And in order, even if you wanted to make it unique, you'd have to run a couple of different passes on it, of like whatever graph algorithm you want to run. And then let's say you got to like 99% uniqueness and you only have like a couple of duplicates. Then your next question is how do you not lose information when you do this like compression? And then how do you what type of information do you care about? So what are all the different pieces? Do you care about time? Do you care about entity? Do you care about topic? Do you care like all of those things? Then what is the actual piece of information? How do you not lose that? Because models are prone to throwing information out the window and rewriting things. And your whole goal is to actually save things that are specific text because the tokens in this case actually matter. And when the tokens themselves actually matter, you run into a lot more of uh, you run into a lot more trouble with using models to propagate the information forward. However, you have to use the models to know when to compress two overlapping nodes. And this is where the problem comes from, is because you can't guarantee preservation of past information. So there's ways to solve it, I think, but they're all kind of domain specific, and I'm generally, and this is what I was saying. It's like it's way better if you want to take facts about a person and like just throw them into the ether, and retrieve them, and then let the model like build up a state or an identity inside itself, and then like output something based off of that identity of the person that it's talking to. That's way easier than trying to say, ah, yes, this specific outage happened at this point in time, and you should remember that thing. It's way better for fuzzy things, really bad at precision. Totally. Yeah. 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 Totally. Um, yeah. At that point, it becomes actually Yes, Baco, conversational agents that need to resurface information on user interactions, preferences, etc. Really, really, really good for that type of thing. That's why things like MemZero and Supermemory exist. Dramatically improves like the personalization of the assistant. Uh, really, really fucking terrible for execution of tasks. So bad. Actually, yeah, exactly. I'm sure. Yeah. Hmm.
Sorry, I've been kind of quiet. One question for the speaker. Sorry, Nissen, right?
Kieran, but close.
The stuff you were going over at the beginning sounded very much like you were creating a recursive system that's going to pass back a lot of these logs and different interfaces and then kind of rank them in some way. Um, is that still a matter of getting the first agent that kicks it off to make like a clear plan of how to actually structure that information, or have you kind of found have you found any kind of stable systems that are really reliable for passing back that recursive testing information and stuff? Because it feels like if you just spam it with logs, obviously that just floods the context and it's garbage, right?
Yeah, so I actually think this is just again, this is like probably what you're describing is probably a context engineering problem. I've tried many different types of agent architectures, and I think like generally the best things keep a really tight loop. It's really important to isolate your contexts to keep them really, really tight. Um, and I think as far as it goes for um I guess what you're asking is like how does it understand the different threads that it's tracking? um I think notably you want to just yeah make sure that it's like not getting overloaded with information. That's what I was saying with like having a good parser is like when you do things on a machine you want to parse the output well. If you parse the output well and you like do don't overload the context too much, then you're going to be fine. What Claude Code does, which is probably something you'll notice, is that it actually like has a hard time with a lot of this stuff because they just dump everything into the context. And so that's yeah, you just want to filter stuff, build good tools. Like if you're going to make an MCP, like design the MCP in a way where the interface is intuitive. Um, keep the tools simple. Um, agents do better with simple tools, viewers better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Minimalism is your friend. When it comes to multi-agent systems, what you want to do is um, arguably have like some like planning or synchronization method. So we were talking about like decomposition, right? Um, and that is super important. Properly decomposing your tasks is like definitely if you don't do it your agent's going to end up in a state where it's just confused out of its mind and it doesn't know where it is in its progress. Um, so as an end user to get the best performance out of them, like that's why I was mentioning having a specific format of whatever you want the agent to report in, and kind of making sure that it understands that format will help you as a user guide it better. Uh, and then you can obviously build systems around it. And the same thing goes for multi-agent. It's like something that I've tried that's pretty cool is have them all write to a single markdown document. That way, there's like some global task state available to everybody, but each one understands where in that Markdown document it's operating, and that has been pretty interesting. Sometimes you'll get state conflicts where two things try to make like changes to the tracker doc, but in general, it works pretty well.
Yeah, I've definitely. Oh, sorry. One follow-up question. I've definitely been motoring with .md files, which is why I've been kind of lazy to use databases or something more complex because it just adds more headache. But I guess the main question I'm asking, Yikes was telling me about using Slate and his experience there. What would you say like the big more performant at this point? Because it sounds like a lot of the structuring and stuff that you're creating there is.
I mean, yeah. So like the big takeaway is that it will not. It doesn't suffer from the same context constraints that like Claude Code and Cursor suffer from. And part of that is because it's like it's designed to interact with the user in a way where I think I was mentioning this at the beginning. It's like you actually do want to do discovery with Slate. You want to coalesce all the information that you know, and when you have a very clear set of constraints up front, it lets it do the task faster. And when you have a very clear understanding of what you want, then the agent makes fewer assumptions, and then that degrades the context less, because there's fewer steps between you and your opinions and the actual output. And when that is true, less has to happen between agreeing on what you need to do and getting it done. And then that means your context degrades less overall. So you can actually think of it more like a UX thing, at least in that regard. Obviously, there's like technical stuff that goes on under the hood, but from the outside, like the takeaway is that it's really important to make things that clarify and like work through the spec process and discovery process well, so that the execution phase is really good. Kind of Yikes talks about this sometimes, but it's like exploration versus exploitation. You want to get the exploration phase locked in so that the exploitation phase is actually really smooth. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Setting up systems for success, and so some of that is like already pre-programmed into Slate.
Cool. How much freedom do you have for managing context at Slate, like as a user?
So you have your messages and you have rules files, and then
Okay.
Slate has a hierarchy for how it interprets rules files. It always defaults to agents.md, given a folder, and then.
Thank you for using a standard.
Hmm?
Thank you for conforming to the standard.
Yeah. It'll always do that first, and then if you don't have an agents.md, it'll auto load your claude.md, and if you don't have that, it'll auto load your cursor rules, and if you don't have that, it'll auto load your GitHub rules, and then so on and so forth.
Okay. And then for your backend like system prompt, how elaborate or involved is it? Because like one of the main problems that I have with like Windsurf and Cursor and all this stuff is there's a lot of like
Oh, yeah.
system prompt like bleed through and like instructions that I don't want it to like for example, it thinks that every fucking tool call is like seriously going to like cause some serious problem, and it won't like execute tools for like
Yeah.
until I explicitly prompt it to do it.
Yeah, so Slate is I have some work to do on the extended version, because right now it asks way too many questions, and the like planning loop is really not
Are
great.
you using GPT-5?
Yeah, for that one, yeah. Codex is a
Yeah,
beast, but
but
Codex is an
fucking
interesting.
ask so many goddamn questions.
I know,
And always
I
want
know.
confirmation.
Over to GPT, but I think it might be because they're running it in Cursor. Not entirely sure, but the reports that I
No.
get from the reports that I get from them are that like GPT will just shut up and work for 30 minutes, and it's like it's
If
kind
you
of
run
scary.
Codex in Codex, like in the, I hate that they named everything fucking Codex, but in their CLI
Yeah,
or
yeah.
their application, if you run it in that, then it's great. It just does what you do. You tell it to do something, it does it. But like if you
Yeah.
try to run it in Windsurf or Cursor or like in any other like non OpenAI proprietary, or I guess they're open source or whatever, anyway, environment, then it will ask a bajillion questions.
So that's a function of two things. The first is the prompting, right? Obviously, but the second thing is actually the way that people interact with the tools. So in the case of Cursor and Windsurf, the reason it does it is because of the system prompt. In the case of other tools, it's actually because people expect to be able to dump essentially the entirety of the context into um, into the CLI. So with Slate, like
Yeah,
the main
that's
issue.
a terrible way to work with it.
I know, I know. But that's why it like does well for people is because it just does exactly what they've clarified all the ambiguity out of the question. So like one of the challenges we have with Slate is like we're designing it so that it can handle ambiguous things, and that makes it harder for it to do these things like to use GPT-5 super well because it's so prone to asking questions. So that is a big thing that I'm trying to figure out right now. But generally it's that people use it like an API call, and so obviously it knows everything, so then it can just go do the work. Which is not the best way to use these things anyways. Honestly, the models are like so much more. It's like you should just let it do the thing. Yeah. 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 That's one of the things that we're toying with actually is like how do I make it so that like we actually have something that can do that for you? You know, like that would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I have like a interviewer agent that like interviews the customer about requirements for a project and
Yeah.
then writes the required documents. Yeah. Also, most normies don't know what they want. Like they think they know what they want, but they don't. Like that's true of like development in general. Like your customers almost always don't actually know what they want. Like they think they know what they want. They can't articulate it. More better first before new.
Best product is when your customers recommend you.
Correct.
The guy said yesterday, he said the best marketing is when your customers recommend you. And I thought that was really smart.
Yeah, but for like how long? It becomes more and more expensive as people you go.
I don't
Turns for
agree.
like
I don't agree. I don't agree. The marketing companies will suck every penny out of you. They'll suck the money out of every single political candidate. All the media companies hold their hands out and say, "Oh, you want to pay for an interview? You want to pay for an article? You want to pay for a tweet?" I paid $500 for a tweet. And then people come